Hey everyone, so today we are doing our opinions of the Philippines video.
So how we're going to organize this video is we're going to break it down into different categories. First is food, second is tourist attractions, third is transportation, fourth is infrastructure, fifth is the people. Then we're going to move on to the safety, how safe it was, and then we're going to do is it English friendly, and last we're going to talk about is it budget friendly and how much it cost us.
Alright, so starting with my favorite section, and we're talking about food. Personally, I think I'm very biased because I am Filipino. I spent the first 11 years of my life there, so a lot of the food was very nostalgic, very comforting. I had my fair share of sinigang, adobo, kinilaw. Kinilaw, if you don't know, is pretty much the Filipino version of ceviche. So much different food, so much rice, so much grilled food as well. I love just simple grilled eggplant and okra when we're on an excursion to go swimming or something. That's very nostalgic for me. I love being able to eat banana Q. Banana Q is something that I can never get in Canada because it's just not something that they sell. I used to get that all the time after school when I was growing up. I really carried it on to my adult life. Now I love anything that has to do with bananas or deep fried bananas in general. I also really like that it was so cheap. You can have a decent amount of food for less than $5 if you eat at a canteen or a carinderia. What did you like?
As a foreigner who is not used to a lot of Filipino food, it was very different for me. But overall, I liked a lot of the food options. Like adobo is a classic. I love pork skewers. And I recently found out about Bicol Express, which is like coconut curry, which is also so good. Probably my new favorite Filipino food, which I had a lot. Also the fruits, like there are a lot of mangoes and coconuts, which I love. So that was really great to have mangoes and coconuts readily available.
And there were different kinds of mangoes too, huh? Because we fortunately came during mango season, you were having 5, 6, 7 mangoes in a row. Sometimes, a family member just has a mango tree and then they just bring it over. You ate a lot of Indian mangoes, huh?
Yeah, mostly the less sweet mangoes. Not my preferred choice, but still good. All mangoes are good. Only in Baguio, they had like coconuts different, and it's my favorite way to eat a coconut now. They like take off the shell or the husk. So it's just like the coconut jelly, and then they just like stick a straw in it, and then you drink it, and then after you can just like eat it like an apple because it's just the coconut jelly.
Yeah.
That's actually the best way. But only in Baguio did they have it like that. I didn't see it anywhere else like that. I would pay extra for that. That was so good.
We went to the islands and for some reason they didn't have it like that.
Yeah, I mean,
so strange.
It's extra work for them.
Yeah.
People probably like the experience of seeing the coconut.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
honestly, just being able to just bite it and eat it after, the best.
Although I feel like there are some cons in terms of food in the Philippines. My biggest con, to be honest, is that it's not as healthy as other options. For so many times we had trouble finding vegetable options. It was always rice and barbecue or grilled chicken, rice, or some kind of meat. And if you go to a canteen or a carinderia, you would always maybe find one option that has vegetables. Everything else is meat. And the usual, it's all very oily, it's fatty, it's salty. I feel like being healthy is not that big of a concern in the Philippines.
And as someone who in the past has not eaten any vegetables or very little, even I was kind of shocked with the little amount of vegetables in their food because, as Dianne said, it's like rice and some kind of meat.
And I feel like comparing it to Taiwan, just because it was the first country, but also it was the country previous to the Philippines, in terms of street food, is very limited. Taiwan just has such a big culture of night markets and eating out cheaply that they have so many different options of what you can have. But in the Philippines, it's really just barbecue, balut, barbecue. There are some noodle dishes. You really like mommies. Lugao is also really good in the morning, but really it's all the same.
There's some places that had like a night market, like Baguio and a night market. Baguio. Talking about water, it's even hard to find water. Easier to buy pop than it is water, which just ties back to health not being a priority. Sometimes water is more expensive than the pop. You really got to go out of your way and prioritize being healthy, because if you don't, then you're just going to fall into the trap of being unhealthy, because those are the most convenient, those are the easiest and the cheapest options. The only other thing was like the food safety. Food safety is not always the highest, especially compared to Taiwan. Flies are everywhere. Like when you're ordering food, like the canteens, which are like the very local food, we're probably going to get the cheapest options. One place had like hundreds of flies in there, and we're like, we're going to eat somewhere else. We didn't get too sick though in the Philippines, which is good.
I don't think we got sick at all in terms of, we didn't get food poisoning at all.
And then the only thing was like ants. There are ants everywhere. I've never seen so many ants in a country. No matter what you do, they'll be in the house, they'll be everywhere.
So out of 10, I'm gonna start with you. What do you think you would rate the Philippines as?
Honestly, I'm gonna rate it as a 6.5. There's some tasty options, but because of the lack of healthy options, I'm gonna rate it a little bit lower, and then there's not too much variety.
I would say, again, I am very biased. I would rate it at an 8. Again, it's very comforting, very nostalgic. In terms of the palate, it's my palate. It's the palate that I grew up with. I love eating with fish sauce, eating with soy sauce. That's my thing. So 8 out of 10 for me.
We did want to mention that I'm a big fan of halo halo. It's probably my favorite Filipino dessert.
And where is the best halo halo?
Best halo halo is surprisingly at Chowking, which is a Chinese chain restaurant.
Yeah, it's a Chinese Filipino restaurant. That's pretty much what they're known for. They're halo halo. Yeah, we've had a bunch of halo halo from different places in the Philippines, and I would say that Chowking is definitely the best.
Our second category is tourist attractions, and this is any kind of excursion or activity that you would do when in the Philippines. And this is probably my favorite category of the Philippines. You've seen the videos that we've done so far, but just to recap, this would include like the beaches, the mountains, the cliffs, snorkeling. Yeah, the natural beauty in the Philippines is probably the highlight for me, as well as the guides. The guides for the tourist activities are usually really good. They know exactly what to do to have a good time. They're taking really good videos, they're taking photos.
I think that would be a good highlight for me too. The first time I saw limestone cliffs in Palawan, and oh my gosh, it blew my mind. I knew from pictures, or I had an idea, but it's just so different seeing them in person. Good as our camera is, it doesn't do it justice. It's beautiful. And the beach is the best beach that I saw in terms of accessibility, how white the sand is, how clear the water was. It was Sikihor. So you can just drive there. It's within the island. You don't have to take a boat there. You have to pay, but it's so cheap. It's 20 pesos, which is 50 cents. Also, the water is so calm that I can swim. I don't have to worry about, the water pulling me in. Also, the sunset is so nice. I feel like those are the main factors that would make a really, really good beach for me. Is the water calm? Is the sand white? Is the water clear? And can we see the sunset? It's all beautiful and all that, but there are cons in terms of the tourist attractions. As cheap as it does feel a little disheartening because it feels that they're trying to charge you for every single thing. I completely understand that, you have to charge money for people's livelihoods and to keep up the place, but I wish there was a little bit more structure or system behind it. I feel like there's not much integrity in terms of the people charging. There's always someone trying to rip you off. That's how it feels like, because you always have to haggle. And I get it. That's part of the backpacking experience and traveling in Southeast Asian countries. You just deal with it enough that it feels like they don't even want you there.
Yeah, they charge you for everything. Like you got an entry fee, then you have an eco fee, and then you have a life jacket fee. And then if you want to put your stuff on a table, you got to pay for the table. And then some places they charge you a mandatory guide, and the guide just walks you down the stairs. It can be very busy and overcrowded. In the Philippines, when things get busy and overcrowded, it's very chaotic.
It's not very organized.
Almost every country that's touristy is going to be busy and overcrowded.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, but something to note.
So, how would you rate the tourist attractions in the Philippines?
That all being said, I still rate it at 8.5 out of 10. Still really enjoyed all the tourist attractions. So when you're going there, just expect it to be busy, overcrowded, and you're going to get charged for everything. And I think you'll have a good time because it's still very beautiful.
The next section is transportation. Transportation is really interesting in the Philippines. During the time there, we rode so many different vehicles. I remember we were counting it. It was like 7 different vehicles. You have the LRTs or the MRTs. You have the jeepneys and you have the buses. Nothing is really part of one main system. It's just their own company.
Mostly you're going to be taking tuk-tuks and tricycles. That's how you're going to get around like 90% of the time.
Depending on like how far you're going. We spent more time in a bus. If you're going for a 3-4 hour journey, then you would be taking a bus. Otherwise, if you're going a fairly close destination, then it would be a tricycle or a tuk-tuk. And scooters were really cheap. We rented it in Sikihor. We rented it in Bohol, Cebu, Palawan. I think it was about $10 to $12. It's fairly safe, I would say. Thankfully, we didn't get into any accidents, knock on wood. Scooters are fun. They're automatic. So when it was available, Grab was pretty good. We used it a lot in Cebu because that was more of a city, but otherwise taxis are also available. They're very convenient and quite cheap as well.
So that being said, we rated it a 5 out of 10. Mostly that's because of how the Philippines is situated. It's thousands of different islands and it's all spread out, which makes traveling through the Philippines quite challenging. Also, there's not much information for buses online. A lot of it is outdated online or just not available. So you have to like go to the actual bus station and figure out how do I get to this city.
But I imagine for someone else who likes to plan and know everything that they need to to do on a traveling day, it might be a bit stressful because you really don't have all of the information until you get there. I guess that's one thing that you should keep in mind in the Philippines. Just be flexible.
Things are just a little bit old and not maintained very well. Things like jeepneys, cool to experience once or twice, and then you notice how much like black smoke comes out of them, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not a big fan of these.
It does create a lot of pollution, huh?
Yeah, like Baguio. I had a lot of jeepneys, and it was like so hard to breathe.
It was the only time that we needed masks in the Philippines. Basically 2 benches, there's no limit really to how many people you can add, and they really just jam you in, because they want to fit as much customers as possible.
Which is honestly fine. It's just the pollution for me.
Oh no, for me that's a big problem. I like my personal space.
That being said, 5 out of 10, it's cheap, but if you're trying to travel around, especially on a shorter trip, you're gonna have to take a lot of flight to see all the places that are popular.
It really is a testament to why Philippine locals don't travel much, because they can't afford it.
And I'm comparing it to countries like Vietnam, where you can just take overnight buses and you can just take buses everywhere. In Europe, you can just take the train, or you can just drive or take a bus. As a traveler coming in with limited time, you're forced to take a lot of flights, which is not the best for your budget.
All right, so the next category is the Filipino people. To start, we had very high expectations. Online, YouTube videos, Instagram videos, everything raves about how nice and welcoming, amazing, happy Filipinos are. And unfortunately, that's not exactly what we got. So it's because we visited mainly touristy areas when we left Luzon. In Luzon, we went to the northern mountains, and then we went with my family. So not much tourists go there. But then once you leave that and you go to the islands like Siquijor, Cebu, Bohol, Palawan, those are like main tourist hubs, right? They're very much used to tourists and foreigners, and it's a different experience. There were times that they were kind of inconsiderate. A good example was when in public settings where you'd think it would be common knowledge to turn your phone down or use earphones on, people don't. And there were so many times this happened. For example, in public transportations, like on the train. In restaurants, people are trying to enjoy their meal. In cafes, a lot of people either enjoy their coffee or they're trying to work or study. I feel like so many people were playing TikTok on full of volume. And that was a big deal for me.
And it's like not one person. It'll be like 3-4 people in one small cafe, all doing the same thing. How does anyone get anything done? And it's not even the people, like the employees working there are also like doing the same thing.
I'm being very conscious about how I'm judging the Philippines. We're coming from a completely different culture. On the TTC, which is the Toronto public transportation, they literally have signs and they have commercials saying like, turn down your phone, like put on earphones. It's not nice. It's very rude. And
yeah, like I think if someone's playing music on their phone on the bus, everyone's like, what is that person doing?
Another thing that I thought was very inconsiderate, 2 experiences that I can think of were we're in line and people just butt in. So for some reason, this lady who was part of a group behind us decided that since we were talking, she could just butt in front of us because we didn't immediately move when the line moved. So I said, excuse me, I'm just calling her attention. And she was mad at me for calling her out. She was like, okay, go then, or something like that. I was so shocked because of the expectations that we had, the really, really high expectations that we got from online content and stuff. I was dumbfounded. In my head, like, you cut in front of me, but you're mad at me for calling you out? That was weird.
And then also like in Taiwan, it's like the opposite.
Yeah.
Like they're very respectful and clean. They make Canada look like uncivilized people with how respectful they are. In contrast, it makes it a little bit tougher. Coming to the Philippines, just be aware of it, and I think it'll be easier if you have realistic expectations. We mentioned earlier, at any of the tourist attractions, they're always trying to rip you off. They'll charge you 10x the price of something just because they think they can.
Looking back to it, it maybe is a little bit unfair for the Filipino people, and it's weird speaking about it like that because I'm part of that.
Also very different than most Filipinos. The Filipinos in tourist areas are going to be different than your average Filipino in a less touristy island. But if you're traveling to the Philippines, that's probably the people you're going to run into.
To that note, I want to hone into the fact that this is mostly because we went to touristy areas. Before that, when we stayed with my family, that was really nice. Like the kids loved you. Kids would follow Suroy around and they would work up the courage to say something in English and be like, hi. And they'd be like, what's your name? And so many times they did that just because maybe that's the only thing that they can confidently say. So in the end, the rating for the Filipino people.
Well, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Unfortunately, as someone traveling through the Philippines, you're going to deal with a lot of people trying to sell you stuff. The average Filipino would be much higher, but as a foreigner traveling through the Philippines, I think that's a more fair reflection.
When I say like the Filipino people, I think of my family and, myself, maybe like a 7 7.5. I'm just so grateful. For that 1 month, they didn't charge us for accommodation. They were always cooking food. Specifically, my cousin's wife, Ate Jing, she would always offer to like get us food or get us something. She was very nice, so very gray. It's not all black and white. For the next category is safety.
I think we had the exact opposite experience
Yeah,
for safety, where
yeah.
everyone's like, oh, it's so dangerous, you gotta watch out. And it felt so safe. Like we had no issues, no pickpockets, nothing got stolen, no one tried to rob us. It was just very safe. I never felt like we were in any unsafe areas. The one time I felt a little bit unsafe is because like there was a sign that's like, watch out for pickpockets. And like we have our camera all the time.
Definitely the complete opposite, because I had such low expectations. Because of those expectations, we were more diligent and we made sure that, you know, we held our phones or we just weren't careless. I didn't feel unsafe at all. Maybe unsafe in terms of mystical meanings, because I'm very superstitious. When it's dark and stuff, I get a little spooky. But in terms of people, I never felt like creeped out or it was a sketchy area. In touristy areas, it's less likely to happen.
I think that's where they would target.
In my head, the Filipino government is way less tolerable for, you know, violence against foreigners just because it's such a bad look for the world. Yeah, I was walking to the hotel alone at night all the time and I never felt unsafe. Is it fair to say that there's like a lot of fear mongering?
Yeah, but that's like everything. With traveling in general, they're always going to be worried. So dangerous, so dangerous. But my home country is very safe. We have murders all the time. You know, we put it at 9 out of 10. Maybe that's a little high because that was our experience. Just be a little bit diligent. Walk with some good posture. People aren't going to target you. And I think maybe it's different because we are usually like walking together in group of 2. I didn't hear too many issues of other people having troubles in the Philippines either.
Just be diligent. You're in a different country. Whenever I get to a place, a city or a country for the first time, I'm always more diligent than I normally am because I've never been there before. Like I have no idea what the culture is. With our experience, it was pretty safe.
All right, and then moving on to how English friendly it was. When people talk online or like you talk to people, that everyone speaks English as a second language. And unfortunately, that was not the case. There still will be a language barrier, but overall, it's still good compared to a lot of other countries.
I agree. I think it's another case of us having the wrong expectations. Your experience was very different from mine because I speak the language. They just hype it up too much online. They say that everyone speaks English when I think what they mean is that maybe everyone has an understanding of English, but not everyone can communicate. Because not only maybe they're not able to, but also speaking English in the Philippines is a testament to your intelligence. If you don't speak it well, that means you're dumb. In that case, I feel like people are shy to speak English and make a mistake. So they'd rather not speak. That's like a cause of friction in terms of communicating.
Which is a myth. Just because you can't speak English doesn't mean you're dumb. That's just what they believe.
In Taiwan, they don't believe that at all. Which is nice because, you know, how proud they are of their country and their language.
Even the people who knew English, when you ask them like the basic questions, like if they're working in a restaurant, you can order. But if you ask anything like off script, very confused. 30% of people speak English where you can have a conversation with them. 50% of people you can actually like order and get by with English. But that being said, like it's still a 7 out of 10 because it's way easier than many other countries get around.
So for the last category, we have, is it budget friendly? And I'm going to let you take this one since you love talking about money so much.
My favorite category. Okay, let me pull up our spreadsheet. We're gonna do all the costs in USD because it's more universal. So first, accommodation. We spent $1,400 US, which got us to a total of $8 per day per person. Then we had business costs, which most people won't have, but we spent $1,700 on business, which is anything related to YouTube, subscriptions, fees, taxes, video editors, etc., which was about $10 per day per person. Then we had charity. So for charity, we did $330, which was about $1 or $2 per day per person. Mostly was like the food giveaways and like giving away money people that we saw. Next we had entertainment, which would cover any excursions or day trips that we did. Also includes like Netflix or Crunchyroll or any other subscription for entertainment. And that was $911 or $5 per person per day. Next we had fees, which was mostly like ATM fees when withdrawing money. And that was $117, which was like 70 cents per day per person. So very small. Then our next one was food. Food was $1,354, which was $7.88 per person per day. Next we had investing, which is not fully updated because it says I only did $439, but it should be closer to double that. So I haven't added those because those automatically come out and I don't always look at it. So we'll just skip that part. Next we had miscellaneous, mostly laundry and anything else that wouldn't fall into a specific category. That was $407 for $2 per day per person. Next we had shopping, which is like clothing or any items, which we didn't do very often. That was $154, which was about 90 cents per day per person. So I bought one shirt throughout the whole trip and you bought one dress or one sarong. That's it. So obviously we didn't do much shopping. And then our last big category was transportation, which was $1,364, which was about $8 per person per day, and that is any tricycles, tuk-tuks, flights, buses, ferries, etc. Overall, we spent $47 per day per person, which was about $333 per week per person, almost like $1,000 a month per person.
I have to say, I feel like there's definitely a cheaper way of traveling the Philippines. At some points, in terms of accommodation, we did value comfort over low cost.
We got private rooms here and there.
Yeah.
We did try to save money, but we mostly stuck to private rooms. However, when we went up into the mountains, there was very little accommodation options. So like one day we spent $75 for a room because that was the only option in this like small town, 4 p.m. on a random day.
Yeah, maybe my cafe visits.
We probably could have cut it down by like $3 a day, like in sugary drinks. So we definitely weren't trying to go the cheapest route for everything.
We're old, you know. We're not in our early 20s anymore. I want to enjoy my backpacking trip. I don't want to just do dorms all the time and eat the most unhealthy but cheapest option.
It's not the cheapest country by any means. If you stay in one island the whole time, yes, it will be much cheaper. For 4 flights, it was $981. I took our total cost and I subtracted our business cost, our charity, and the investing, and that got us to a total of $6,155 for the 86 days, which is $35 per day per person, which gets you to a cost of $250 per week or $1,073 per month. So overall, I still think it's quite cheap because we weren't trying to save as much money as possible. We didn't do dorm beds. We didn't do the cheapest accommodation. We went to a lot of cafes. We tried a lot of different food. Still a Southeast Asian country, and that's why we rated it an 8.5 out of 10.
Thanks for doing all the math. Appreciate it.
You gotta know your numbers so you don't run out of money. I think we were very critical of the Philippines, especially compared to what most people do online. But I think if you're planning to come to the Philippines, good to know so you have a more realistic expectation. Philippines is still very beautiful. I would still highly recommend coming here just with the right expectations.
It's kind of weird to say because this is our video, but I kind of wish we saw a video like this before coming to the Philippines, because you're right, like everyone else talks so positively about the Philippines. It doesn't really mention any of the downsides.
They're scared of the Philippine community. That's why.
Yeah, it's true.
They're scared of the backlash, but
yeah,
we'll embrace it. We'll take it.
If it comes, then it is what it is. Like, I don't want to lie on the internet. I love the Philippines. It's my home, or one of my homes. I definitely come back because there are so many things we didn't do. It's a must visit for sure. It's so beautiful.
Before we go, I do want to kind of like rate the places we went to. First, we went to Clark, and we went to Clark just because there was a music festival, which is really good. If there's no music festival, I wouldn't go to Clark. I would skip it.
Baguio, honestly, I wouldn't go because the pollution was terrible. It was very busy, and the main attraction was it was cold, and honestly, that's not what we're looking for.
After that, from Baguio, we went to Bicol, which is where Apo Wang Od lives. Getting to that village takes so long. If you're on a limited timeline, I might skip it. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the highlights for me because like the mountains, the rice terraces, but it took maybe a week to get there. So it takes a long time. If you have 3 weeks, I probably would skip it. It's like very out of the way. Some people go there because Apo Wang Od's there and they want to go like what we did. We wanted to go and see her. So it didn't matter where it was. We were going to get there.
Next is when we went to my home.
Yeah, so.
Which is not relevant to anyone. Unless you're from there, then hi. You're from Mikoayan.
Yeah, unless you're a part of Diane's family. You're probably
there's
not
no
going to be
reason
going
for
there.
you. Yeah. And then Manila.
I would skip Manila as well.
You don't, not even a full day.
No, I would skip it. There's so many other places I'd rather see. I think the time in Manila would be better spent elsewhere. I think if you're like, I want to be a digital nomad and live in the Philippines, sure, Manila is good because it's an airport. A lot of content creators live in Manila so they can fly from Manila elsewhere. But if you're on a short timeline, skip Manila. I don't think it's worth it.
I liked it because of the museums. I love history, and the museums are free. So you could learn about the Philippine history and like see the paintings from back then and stuff. That mural just stays on my mind, explaining without words the history of the Philippines, coming from pre-colonial times until present time. I think it's worth a visit. Same thing with Pampanga. We were there because of families. I don't think there would be any reason, unless you know you love food, and I know a lot of people visit Pampanga because it's the food capital of the Philippines. Otherwise, there's no reason for you to go there. Next is Siquijor. Yes, definitely yes, visit it. It's so slow. It's so different from the other touristy areas. There's this thing that they call the Siquijor magic, and it's healing and stuff. I can see why. Even the beaches are like calm, and it's very nice. I really like Siquijor. Siquijor?
I think Siquijor is like the first place that I would say something to consider or debate. If you're on limited time, maybe I would skip Siquijor because it's kind of far out of the way. Like when you get to Siquijor, you have to fly in to Dumaguete, and then Dumaguete you go to Siquijor. It is a very beautiful island, but if you just want to hit up all the famous spots, maybe it's worth skipping. And then from Siquijor, we did Bohol.
For me, yes, definitely. I'm Filipino. Seeing the tarsiers and the chocolate hills is something that I never thought I would ever do. I learned about it as a kid growing up, so seeing it in person was very surreal. And where do you see Hershey Kisses hills anywhere else? And it turns brown on dry season, turns green. It's magical.
Bohol, I would definitely recommend. Bohol is like the opposite of Siquijor, where if you had a lot of time, I would go to Siquijor and you could spend a month there and it'd be a great island for that. Bohol is the perfect island if you have like 3 days. You can hit the Tashirs, the chocolate hills, and the island's very beautiful. And you can do all that in 3 days. And it's much closer. Like from Bohol to Cebu is very close, so it's not very far out of the way. The Moabal, which is on the province of Cebu, is where you have the canyoneering, which is like so much fun, such a great day trip. And then you also have the swimming with the sardines, which was so cool. I did not expect it to be so cool. And then next was El Nido. El Nido was so beautiful. I would highly recommend it. It was probably my favorite town. It was so beautiful, right on the beach, the limestone cliffs right beside it, and it had the island hopping, which was one of my highlights of the Philippines, where I got like my favorite drone shots that I really enjoyed. It is the most expensive town I think we went to. If you're on a budget, maybe skip it, but I think it's still worth it, but maybe just spend less time there. And then next was Coron, which was our last stop, and I really liked Coron as well. If you're going to be in El Nido, you might as well go to Coron. It felt more like a real town. Coron felt like locals lived here and it's more integrated with the locals. And that was our trip in the Philippines.
Thank you so much for watching. I think we rambled on enough. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you enjoyed the Philippines series. It's over. And then we were gonna move on to Indonesia. It's so exciting. Okay, see you later. Bye.